Hello everyone and welcome to Quality Star Wars Games. Today we are making another tier list in Star Wars Empire at War, Forces of Corruption, and this time we are going to rate the Zann Consortium units. And, well, the tier list is based on campaign setting, so basically it means that those late game units are available only for a short period of time, and perhaps also the playstyle affects the rating. But overall, I think that Zann Consortium rosters are relatively well balanced. There are not many units that feel really bad, or that are clearly better than some others, but let's see how the tier list will go. First we will start with land units. First we have Canderous Tank. I mean, this is the kind of late game land unit. It has mass driver weapons, so it penetrates shields, which can be rather nice. Overall, the unit feels rather sturdy, and it can dish out rather nice amount of damage. So I think relatively decent, perhaps weak A tier unit. Of course, the weakness is that it's a late game unit, so you don't get to use that too much in campaign. So there is that. Then we have Defiler, and even though I don't like that much about kind of sneaking approach and using stealth and then blowing things up and so on and so forth, but I think the Defilers are actually quite nice in ground battles. They can demolish buildings rather quickly, they are rather sturdy, and they are of course available through the entire campaign. So I think I will give them S tier, and of course there is the bonus that you can do those campaign map things with them, corrupt those planets and so on and so forth. Of course, the downside is that they are rather pricey, but the requirements on the other hand are rather easy as well, or low as well. Then we have Destroyer Droid. I like the speed of this thing. At the same time, I didn't use them much. And I also have to admit that I don't like ground battles in the basic Empire at War, especially that much, so I didn't play that many ground battles, but on those occasions I did play, I think the unit it's really strong in its niche against infantry, but if it has to go against stronger opponents, I think it doesn't do that well. So B tier from me. Then we have this cloaking transport. I mean, cloak is always nice, but at least in campaign I didn't need transports that much. Perhaps I should have used them more, but I think C tier from me. That might be also because of the playstyle. I don't like that sneaking around too much, so instead of cloaking transport, I would prefer to take, say, one additional Canderous Tank battalion or whatever they are called. So yeah, C tier from me. Then we have Grenadiers. Well, I think this unit is rather bad. It can do decently well against enemy infantry, but that's pretty much it. Of course, it's cheap, quick to make, easy accessible, but overall I think if you compare the results it can put up against that of a mercenary assault squad, then I think the D tier is validated. Then we have this MAL, kind of light vehicle. That's the Consortium's artillery support unit. So it can use two types of missiles, and based on some quick testing, I mean, you just cannot go smashing through everything with these. You need to be patient, but I think they are decent enough. So A tier from me. Those ranged units are always nice. If you can have some spotter, for example Uri with cloaking, then that's really nice. So I think this unit actually combines rather well with all of those cloaked units, and I'm still not going to make any cloaking transports. Then we have MDU Company, kind of a support unit, and it feels very situational. So the accessories it can build are not that good, in my opinion. So C tier, once again, I would rather take some heavy assault vehicle or even this artillery unit over these. Then we have this Merc Assault Squad. I mean, in my opinion, it can beat most of the other infantry units in the game. So that's rather nice, and if it can even put up a rather decent fight against enemy vehicles, and of course it can shoot air, so kind of a multi-purpose unit. So I would take these over these any day of the week because of the versatility of this unit. It's not that much more expensive, so I think that's rather nice aspect of this unit. Then we have this MZ8 pulse tank. I used them in campaign quite a lot. On the hint side, that might have been somewhat of a mistake. Of course, the unit feels rather sturdy. Those explosions from its shots are rather beautiful. But in my experience, it tends to miss quite a lot. And it cannot shoot air. So that's another minus, but I mean, it feels kind of the average vehicle for Consortium, so perhaps B tier would be fair for it. Then we have Night Sisters. This is one of the units I like really much, so I'm going to give it S tier. I mean, with a couple of hits, it can take down Turbo Laser Tower, and actually, it can easily beat that Turbo Laser Tower. It can go head-to-head with AT-AT, so yeah, practically perhaps the heaviest hitting unit in the entire game. So I think even despite it's the highest cost unit for Consortium as well, I will give it S tier. Then we have these, I don't know how to pronounce, Vronskers, kind of a anti-Jedi, anti-force user unit, and it feels rather niche. At least in campaign I didn't use it even once, and well, there are not that many situations where to actually use it. Of course, if you are playing, for example, a skirmish battle and you need to battle against Luke or Vader or Emperor, perhaps the unit can be rather useful then, but in campaign, perhaps C tier is a bit too generous. At least I didn't make any of these. Once again, perhaps I should have made, but I didn't. Then let's move to space units. First we have Aggressor class destroyer. And the weapons of this ship are rather limited, 2 turbo laser turrets plus the special weapons. And I think the special weapons are quite nice, especially against bigger targets. It tends to miss with those rather frequently, especially against corvettes, also somewhat against frigates, but against, for example, a Victory Star Destroyer, against Star Destroyer, Mon Calamari Cruiser, it can inflict rather nice damage. So I think I will give it A tier. It kind of feels, it's an artillery ship that can actually protect itself somewhat. But overall, you shouldn't go head-on to a brawl with this unit, but keep them away and kind of shell down the enemy units a bit by bit. Then we have Crusader class gunship. I think that's clear A tier. Compared to any other corvette, I think this has the best anti-air capabilities or anti-fighter capabilities, anti-bomber capabilities in the game. So a really solid addition to the unit roster, especially as the fighter roster of Consortium is somewhat limited. So at least I was relying on these really much for anti-fighter support. Then we have this Interceptor 4 frigates, and that's absolute trash. I just had to use them in the campaign because I didn't have anything else that resembles even something big in the early campaign, but I mean, it's just horrible. It's easy to take down, it doesn't pack too much a punch, so yeah, I mean, it's just bad. I was so happy when I got these Vengeance class frigates in the campaign. Then we have Kelday class battleship. And in the campaign, I actually didn't build many of these. They have those special requirements for building, for example, Fondo, Quad, etc., etc. They are the second highest tier units for Consortium fleet, so only tier 4 space station needed. Of course, there are those special requirements, but overall, I mean, the ship is perhaps the most heavily armed ship in the entire game, plus it has that special ability to drain enemy shields and then use that energy to boost its weapon power. But yeah, I have to admit that I didn't use that ship too much in the campaign, and I actually had to test it in skirmish how well it actually performs. And to be honest, I was a bit surprised how well it does. So I think that ship actually deserves a place in S tier, because in one-on-one I think it can take on anything. It has even that one mass driver cannon, but I mean, perhaps it's rather best used for anti-fighter or anti-bomber function, because it can drain enemy shields rather quickly, and then it can punch through most of the enemy ships rather quickly. So I think this is clearly one of the best ships in the entire game. Then we have Skip Ray Blast Boat. And I think this bomber feels relatively average. If there is any anti-fighter units in the battle, they will just wreck these. But then again, if there are no anti-fighter weapons close by, these will wreck most of the capital ships. So, I mean, their main weakness is their slowness, in my opinion, and lack of maneuverability, which makes them vulnerable to any anti-bomber units. But they actually take enemy shields down really quickly, even with bigger ships, and then they do have quite a few of those torpedoes, so they can inflict quite nice damage as well. So it's kind of it's excellent in its purpose, its main purpose. At the same time, it's really vulnerable if it's countered. So it kind of feels, well, a good unit in a way. It clearly has its purpose, but you need to play it smart for it to shine. So kind of feels, because of that, the overall feeling is kind of average. Then we have this Star Viper fighter. I think I will give it B tier as well. It's a basic fighter. I mean, it can in 1 versus 1 take on TIE fighters, most of the basic fighters the enemies have. And of course it has those bus droid, it can deploy those. And they can be rather critical for the success of battle. So yeah, at the same time, they are really weak. So if enemy has a corvette, then these will go down like flies. So I don't know. You have perhaps C tier, especially when you get those Crusaders. These kind of feel obsolete. So perhaps B would be a bit too generous. I will give it C. And why the skip rays are getting B is that until you get these vengeances, these will be by far your most efficient way to deal with capital ships or enemy space stations. Then we have this Vengeance class frigate. I think I will give it A tier. I mean, the unit feels sturdy enough, even though it has no shields, but those mass drivers can be rather useful because you can punch through the shields to take down, for example, the enemy shield generator, if that's possible. So, kind of special unit to use, that because most of the other units don't have mass drivers, so that's really nice. As well as actually most of the Consortium units, they almost all have some kind of a perk or some twist in them, so that makes them a bit special. But yeah, this is my view. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Have a great rest of the day. Quality Star Wars Games out.